Welcome to the Destiny EDU podcast. I am BJ Barango, creative strategist at Destiny Education. On today's episode of the podcast, I sit with FEB Idahosa, the president of Benson Idahosa University and Destiny Education board member. We discuss the future of higher education in Nigeria and what higher education means in the current state and the global trend of online universities. Well, welcome to the podcast. Now let's get into that conversation.
We're talking about the future of education, educational leadership, and the online education, as well as how the outlook for that educational leadership, and online education in Nigeria is, how the outlook is in Nigeria. So to begin the conversation, I'd like to ask this question. What gaps did you see in the Nigerian education or higher education system? And this is in relation to you being a board member of Destiny Education and the offerings Destiny Education has currently.
Oh, sure. Now, what gaps? See, that question is very loaded. The gaps in the Nigerian educational system are huge. People are leaving the country in droves. So, but we have education here, and we have pretty good education in Nigeria. But we also have gaps between what we see that could be and what is. So one of the reasons why I've joined the Destiny board is because, first of all, I'm an educator. So when it comes to, and my father was an educator as well too. So he believed in spiritual education. He had a Bible school. He had a church. He had all these things to educate. And I believe the same things too. I want to see how we can get education into the hands of everybody. The reason why my father started this was because when he was a young man, he couldn't go to school. So he would, his uncle's children, his cousins and different ones, they would go to school and they would come back and they would be teaching him things that they learned at school. That's how he started learning things. But before he passed away, he grew to rank as professor. So he pursued education. And he wanted to make sure that we have the same opportunities for us as children and for many people as well too. I'm giving you the background so we can know why I'm coming here. And so for me then, I also believe in education as well too. So my parents started at elementary school. And we have starting from there all the way down from primary all the way to university level. So we have all of these arms of education. So for me, I believe the same thing again. Let's continue to educate our population, because if you can educate your population, it opens up so much. So having done that, we also have our Word of Faith schools. We have Nathan American Academy. So we're trying to do education everywhere. So different schools for education. We have the university now, Benson Idahosa University. And so I also want to work with Destiny EDU to make sure that we can bring education in all ramifications. So basically, anywhere you want to get educated, we are ready to help you out in any different way. So with Destiny, what we're doing with Destiny is we're connecting Nigerians to universities in the US and to other countries. So perhaps you don't necessarily want to go into a Nigerian private university or Nigerian public university. You want to go to school with an online university. This gives that opportunity. So we can get you to connect to an online university, get the full experience that you would get by going to a US accredited university, while we have access for Nigerian accredited universities here as well too. So anywhere you want to get educated, we want to do that. Now, the gaps we've seen in Nigerian education is that sometimes people don't necessarily have a chance to do online education. So maybe perhaps someone's working. I have a job, and I can't leave my job to go to Benson Idahosa University because I have too much work. I can't do it part-time. I can't do part-time work. So then you can actually come and go to, you can join Destiny. We can connect you with 1 or 2 universities in the US where you can do your work in the evenings after you finish your 9 to 5. Because we just need to get education in as many ramifications into the hands of everyone. When you educate a person, you open his mind, you change the future for him or for her. That's why we want to try to do that.
Okay. Interesting one there. You made mention of the things that probably the challenges most people face, not being able to get education when they want to because of the things that they have. For instance, the job, and they're not able to, meet up. But then the online education is there. Right. So the question now is, what are the barriers? We're looking at the educational system and the commitment for Nigerians to take up advantage of most of these opportunities. But what are the barriers to entry to giving Nigerian students a more global outlook? Now, is the Nigerian educational system ready for the full commitment in these new fast-growing technologies, like the online learning system that is globally being accepted? Right. Do you think that, from your perspective, is the Nigerian educational system ready to embrace all these new technologies?
Well, I would answer that by saying, if we don't embrace it, we'll be left behind. So one of my favorite philosophers and writers, his name is Leonard Sweet, he's a Christian philosopher, and he says, if you want to hit a moving target, you have to lead it. So unfortunately, our Nigerian educational system, we are just lagging behind because we're trying to catch up with what people have been doing for years already. There was a time when we were trying to talk to the NUC, that's the Nigerian University Commission, about let's go online and let's prepare our students for online education. And they were resisting. Well, they will cheat, they will do this, they'll do that. And I said, look, but it's working in Open University. It's working in other places. Why can't we do it in the it works in the US, works in the UK, works in Europe. Well, they had some different things. But then when we had the pandemic and COVID hit, everybody had to stay home. And so suddenly they said, okay, yes, let's go online, let's go online. At that point, again, we're now behind because everyone else has been doing this for years. Now, my point I'm trying to make is this. If we don't, as a nation, begin to lead in these technologies, now, we have things that we can use to help prevent some of the fears. You know, I can check keyloggers, I can check all kinds of things to let you know that this is the person who's taking the class. But we have to be prepared. So is Nigeria prepared for it? We're not prepared right now. That's why we have things like with Destiny right now, where you can actually go online, you can get a full education. You can get access to the same classroom that you would in the US. Or in Nigeria, if you go into BIU, because we have a hybrid system, you can get access to the classrooms here as well too. We need to constantly be on the lookout to make sure that we have access to accredited education. So what we're doing with Destiny, and that's why I love what Destiny does as well too, is we give those of us who are here access to be able to connect, to be able to get a world-class learning environment, to get the same access you would if you were there in the US at the time, or if you were in Nigeria at the time. We want to connect you to as many ways as possible. For me, my bottom line is we must get education into everyone's hands. Now, one good thing about, I love with what we do with Destiny too as well too, is that we can get you a chance to get into a mentoring program, mentoring classes, mentoring relationships with those who have already gone further. You can learn from them. You can connect. You can do the kinds of things which will help to equip you and get you ready for the future. You see, back to what I just said again, if we don't lead, we'll be left behind. We can't say, this is where it is right now, let's catch it. No, we need to be in front of it. If you're in front of it, then you can connect to it. That's how it works.
Great. You made mention of the COVID-19, the pandemic. It was really huge globally. And there's been a shift. I mean, that's changed the narrative of education globally. There has been that major shift, the approach of education on a global scale. But let's look at Nigeria, because that's a conversation tonight.
Right.
Have you seen any changes as you as an educator from the institutions you administer, leadership with? Have you seen any changes to the way education is administered since COVID-19, since the pandemic, since the lockdown?
Oh, absolutely. When the lockdown happened and started March of last year, only the schools that already had infrastructure in place, so we had internet in place already. Very few schools did. Not very many had the chance to say, look, we have good internet access. We didn't have to just teach online. Many of them were just sort of not prepared. But the schools that did were able to move faster. So, for example, at Benin City Nigeria University, we were able to move from just from in-person classes only to having hybrid classes. So we have classes where you could meet in person, or we could do classes via Zoom, via WebEx, via different ways to meet. We were able to use things like Moodle to be able to give students access to the classroom. Now, this was in Nigeria. Nigeria, only a few schools would do that. There were only a few schools would do that. Our elementary school did that as well, too. But in the US, many schools just transitioned like seamlessly. It's like saying, okay, today we can't go to class today, so we're going to meet online. And so most just did a simple transition and they were able to move and did that. I wish we could do the same thing here. We, thankfully for us, because we were already online, we were able to, as Benson Idahosa University, we were able to have our exams be administered online, so we were able to finish that semester because thankfully we already had things in place to help us do that. So now, having said that, after the lockdown, most schools finally got online. So have things changed, or things have changed right now? Now we have what we call a hybrid system, where most schools now can do both online and also in person. But a hybrid one puts it all together. So you mix both of those together. You have some classes online, some classes in person. That's what helping to do that both for university level, for elementary level. It's important that we said, like we said, if we're leading, we would have been there ahead of time. But this is why it's important that we begin to start thinking differently. So with Destiny, we'll do with Destiny as well. So everything's fully online. And so that one will help you as well. So if there's another pandemic or if there's a different kind of disaster, your learning won't stop because you have to say, what do we do now? Because everything's already online. So it works as well too.
Let's talk about trends, educational trends.
All right.
What trends, looking at from a global view, what trends, apart from the online learning trends that we've talked about,
right,
what education trends should Nigerians and the Nigerian education system embrace, and what trends do you think that we should let go of?
Wow. See, now what people say that I'm a bit too far thinking, but here's what I look. The way the world is working right now, moving so fast. Education needs to move from being a 4-year process to being a 2-year process. Let me explain why. Because by the time you enter university, what you've learned in your first and second year, by the time you get to your third year, it's already obsolete. What you're learning, okay, unless it's like a few basic things that are foundational. But you should have learned foundations in your elementary school, in your secondary school. By the time you're in high school, learn foundations. By the time you get to university, there are very few courses which we should be thinking about still being 4 and 5 years. Maybe perhaps courses that you have to stay in with, like medicine, where you have to really learn a lot of things in there. But for most other things, technology, even things as simple as geophysics, which is not what most schools teach, but most courses you can learn in 2 years because you spend all the time learning other things, which by the time you spend 4 years or 5 years in school, those things are no longer relevant. So why spend 5 years doing things that by the time you come out of school, you'll still be looking for what I need to do. So it's important that we start thinking ahead of time. The worst is have to do with any classes that have to do with computer science, computer technology, anything has to do with technology really, because 6 months is about the time it takes to change most things. So my thought as far as trends go, you should spend a year learning basics, learn foundation. By second year, you should be learning what's working in the industry, what should be working industry relevant for 5 years from now, so that by the time you come out, you're ready to hit that. If you spend 4 years learning the same thing, I don't want to be like a Nigerian student who goes to school and comes out and say, press any key. Say, oh God, please, which key is any? I don't see any key here. So we should be thinking old time. We should be thinking ahead. So that's what I see as a trend. Trends, I don't think will happen anytime soon, but you should be thinking, shorten the time it takes to get your basic education, then go and learn practical things that are relevant to the future. That's the trend we should be following.
Oh, great. I love that. You've been an advocate for education and also an advocate for the entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Right.
For the want of a better expression, I use that one. So you're being an advocate for entrepreneurship as the way that young Nigerians can improve their lives and move ahead, change their stories. We're looking at that now, and we see that a lot of Nigerians are embracing entrepreneurship, starting up businesses, a lot of startups coming up left, right, center. But then there's an education part of it.
Right.
Do you think that before someone decides to, become an entrepreneur and that needs to compete on a global scale, is there like a certain type of education that they need, to compete with their counterparts on the global level?
Oh, absolutely. Because once again, the world, you've heard this many times, the world is a global village. Okay, so I can be in Nigeria and be selling things to people in China. Well, just China, for example, is a great one. The Chinese market has its tentacles everywhere. Alibaba is all around the world, and you can go online, go to Alibaba, and within 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, a week, you have the products in your hand in remotest part of Nigeria. So things have changed quickly. So here's what I mean. What do you need to do to think entrepreneurially for the global world that's changing? You must be prepared to see the world as a global stage. You must be thinking about borderless education. You must be thinking about jobs or working in an area so you can be an entrepreneur within a company and think in a way so that I must prepare for the work of tomorrow. I must be prepared for the jobs, for the businesses and the skills of tomorrow. What is working today will not be working tomorrow. Okay, let me give you an example. Look at our social media. You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on Twitter. These guys are updating their apps every 2 weeks.
Sure.
So you see what's on IG today is changed in 2 weeks' time because they've changed it. So, look at something like, your reach on Instagram or Facebook, or whatever it is reducing all the time because they change things, the way things are working. So can we prepare Nigerians, okay? I'm an entrepreneur as a young man. I should be thinking, how do I be able to take my goods and services, which I have here in Nigeria, to service someone who's in the US? Is it possible? Yes. I need an education that will tell me how that works. So not only do I need to learn how my business should work, if I sell widgets or whatever it is I sell, I should know how this works, okay? But I need to sell you the benefit of this widget, not just the widget itself. And so that's what I know how to do. Then my education should teach me how to reach someone in China, how to reach somebody in Boise, Idaho, how to reach somebody in Abakiliki with this benefit of this widget. Not just I went to school to learn, okay, this is a widget. One is 10 naira times 220. No, those are things which are obsolete. So if I want to be an entrepreneur, I should know how it works, why it works, and I need an education that will tell me how I can use this to be a better entrepreneur. That's the kind of thing we should be looking at in today's world. So Destiny is doing that with what we're doing. We're teaching you online. We're connecting you around the world. And we're putting you in rooms with people who have done this 10 times, 20 times. We're putting you in rooms with people who already know what to do and how to do it. So I'm not going to school just to learn that this is a widget. I'm going to school to learn this is a widget, what it does, why it's important, and how do I get it from Nigeria to somewhere else. So that's why Amazon is so successful, because they're putting their hands everywhere. Netflix is based in the US, but they are in thousands of places around the world. They're in hundreds of millions of homes in Nigeria because they understand not just the business of entertainment, but how to get it into these places. And that's why an education is so important, not just to learn what this is. Do it in 2 years, get out and get it done.
Okay. Finally.
Yes, sir.
Now, the topic today is the future of education, educational leadership,
Right.
and online education in Nigeria. And what would you say is the future of education in Nigeria? Let's look at the Nigerian context.
Wow.
What would you say is the future of education in Nigeria?
Well, I mean, the future of education in Nigeria is bright, okay? I'm not one of those who sees all doom, doom, doom. I see some mistakes that we made in the past, but we can get better. We should be thinking now, how do we do things differently? Our curricula should be international. It shouldn't be just based on only what happens in Nigeria, because here's what I mean by that. Tomorrow, our children will leave these shores and they'll go somewhere else, okay? Nigerian doctors are leaving Nigeria at alarming pace, but they're going to other places. They understand the basics, but do they understand how it works somewhere else? So I should have done the USMLE while I'm in Nigeria. So I understand how to take a US medical exams while I'm in Nigeria. I should have an education that's international in its outlook. So I learn about Nigeria. I learn about what works in West Africa. I learn about what works in Europe, about what works in Australia. So these are things that we can actually learn by going online and getting the benefits of all these educations. So the future of Nigerian education is bright if we continue to think ahead, as opposed to thinking what worked last year, what worked 20 years ago. That's not how it worked. Mungo Park is dead, okay? Let's think 20 years' time. Can we think too, how can we reduce the cost of education? So like with Destiny, for example, now, there's a tuition cost and there's a discount of 90%. So it's dropped the cost very, very much. So you can connect, instead of paying the full price of $10,000, you're paying $2,000. Or if you're paying $40,000, you're paying $2,000. That has helped a lot. Now, can we do the same thing for the Nigerian in Nigeria on a private university? It's difficult because you have to pay a professor to be in the classroom all the time, and you have to pay him at least 500,000 naira, million naira. By the time you get 10 professors, you are paying heavy loads. So the schools pass these costs on to the students. But when you're doing things online, these things can help reduce the cost. So Should we be thinking now about how do we change the Nigerian outlook? Yes, we should be, so that we don't necessarily have to have the same things that were working before. Let's think. The point is, we must get a student educated. Whether it's done this way or that way, can he get the knowledge into his head? If he can get that, if she can get that, it will change their future. So our trends, our planning should be, and our future should be one that says, let's reduce our costs. Let's make things better so that when someone connects, they have an international curriculum, the cost is lower for them, they can plug in right away, and they can come out, be an entrepreneur, and begin to see how things will be different. Our qualifications, we should be thinking about the ones that are relevant for the future. So I've put all these things together into one small bowl now. I hope that helps. But I believe that really Nigeria has a great future. And when we connect, you went to our four-year university and you're doing great big things now. We're proud of what you're doing. Let's keep on doing the same thing. Let's see how we can do all these things to make sure that the future of education in Nigeria is better. Whether it's online through Destiny EDU, whether it's in person or in hybrid through Benson Idahosa University and other universities, we must prepare our students for a world that is global and change what they see.
Thank you for sharing your time with us today. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, appreciate you. Thanks for your time as well, too.
Okay.
All right.